Hey Knights! So, I don't know if you can already tell, my hair is completely different. I totally screwed up with my semi-dye. So now I've got red, blue, some pink, purple, green. I don't know how the back turned out. Meant to do like very small amount on it, and it bled out as I was washing it out. So now I think I'm like a female version of Optimus Prime. Yeah, my skills are not that good. Anyways, um, this is going to be chapter 13 and 14 of the Bad Wolf Chronicles for Running Through the Stars. Okay. So chapter 13, Father's Day. Yeah, the doctor replied, looking up. Jessie swallowed. I was wondering, a dangerous pastime, the doctor warned her, but he nodded encouragingly. She took a deep breath. Coulson, when he died, can we go see it? The doctor blinked, leaning forward. What brought this up? You weren't there. No one was. She bit her lip, getting the voice away. No one was there for him, she replied. Only Thor, locked in a glass trap. Loki doesn't count. If it breaks the law of time or something, we don't have to, she quickly added. It's not that, he assured her, walking to the console. I can do it. I'm just more worried about you. Worthless. Don't let anybody tell you you're not important. I have to, she whispered. He nodded his understanding. What's the day? He asked. May 4th, 2012. The helicarrier was rumbling as Jessie stepped out of the TARDIS. Tony told me all about it, she whispered, walking through the halls, heading for where she knew Loki would be. They were arguing, and in the middle of it all, an explosion ripped through the helicarrier, and the doctor's arms were suddenly around her waist and pulling her under a shelf as debris began falling. She coughed as smoke filled the air. That? The doctor asked. Yeah, that. Engine 3 is down, Maria Hill's voice announced over the intercom. Engine 3 is down. A few moments later, the Hulk's roar echoed. Thor fought the Hulk, saved Net's life, Jessie continued, standing shakily. She walked on autopilot through the halls, stopping when she found a doorway to Loki's cell. She swallowed. And then he ran here. As if on cue, Thor appeared in the opposite doorway as Loki, his apparition, Jessie knew now, exited the cell. No! Thor cried, running towards him. Loki got into a fighting stance, then vanished when Thor was about to hit him. Thor fell into the cage, which locked behind him. The real Loki smirked as possessed S.H.I.E.L.D. agents appeared behind him. Are you ever not going to fall for that? Sounds British, the doctor muttered. Then Thor tried to get out. Jessie watched him try. Then Loki threatened to let the cage drop, and then one of the agents dropped dead, and Coulson stepped up, holding a Phase 2 prototype gun. Move away, please. Oh God, Jessie whispered, squeezing her eyes shut. Terrified, scared, coward. The doctor's arms came around her, and she leaned into his touch, while still watching in the shadows as Coulson continued. You like this? He nodded to the gun as Loki raised his hands warily. We started working on the prototype after you sent the destroyer. Even I don't know what it does. He did something, and the gun began glowing yellow-orange. Do you want to find out? Jessie knew it was coming, but she forced herself to watch. She felt the doctor stiffen when Loki reappeared behind Coulson, scepter in hand, and stabbed him from behind. She buried her face back into the doctor's jumper, hearing Thor's cry ring through the air. One of the doctor's hands rubbed small circles in her back as she cried silently. She watched Loki send Thor down to earth, then turned to go. You're going to lose. Jessie straightened a little as Loki turned back to Coulson. Am I? It's in your nature. Your heroes are scattered, Loki countered. Your floating fortress falls from the sky. Where is my disadvantage? You lack conviction. Loki frowned. I don't think that I... The gun went off, catapulting Loki past the doctor and Jessie, revealing their spots. Coulson gave a weak smile. So that's what it does. Jessie tugged out of the doctor's grip and ran for Coulson, ignoring the doctor calling her code name. Coulson, she whispered, putting a hand to his cheek. He looked at her with a glazed expression. Who? He asked weakly. She shook her head, glad she'd kept her hair down. It hid her features and the tears going down her face. No one important, she replied. He gave her a small smile. Everyone's important, one way or another. Jessie forced a small chuckle. Everything will turn out well, she told him. Magical place where you're going. It'll be all right. How do you know? She smiled. I've wished for death many times before, she replied, hearing the doctor's sharp intake of breath. But you're dying for a good cause. It'll be worth it. Thank you, he whispered. She nodded, kissing his forehead. She heard familiar booted feet hitting the stairs outside. Then stood and ran through the walls with the doctor, heading back for the TARDIS. She stopped halfway there. Tony and Steve stood by engine 3, faces grave as the comms came on. Agent Coulson is down, Furia's voice announced. Medics are on their way, another voice replied. They're already here. They called it. The look on her friends' faces made Jessie run past them silently back to the TARDIS. The doctor was right behind her as they made it inside. The doctor watched Jessie as she leaned against one of the coral structures looking at her. She kept shaking her head like something was wrong with it. Your head all right? Don't know. Something was up. She would have denied it right off the bat. He stood straighter. There's something. Could we go see Grant's too? The doctor saw her tear-stained face and knew Coulson's death had taken a toll on her. Are you sure? Jessie shook her head. Shut up, she whispered. He blinked. Sorry? Nothing, she replied quickly. But yeah, I'm sure. Okay, he replied simply, going back over to the console. Date? She took a deep brush. She took a deep, shuddering breath. December 15th, 2013. She stepped outside at the TARDIS, seeing dry grass all around. The clairvoyant was someone the team had been tracking for a long time. She explained to the doctor as they strode through the dry area. One close encounter ended up with Skye being double-tapped in the chest. It's a miracle she survived. She could feel his eyes on her. There was one last raid on the warehouse they found him. Everyone was split up. Coulson and May, Fitz and Simmons. The sound of machine guns filled the air, and the doctor understood. Grant and Skye. Jessie took off at a run, the doctor keeping time with her. They made it around the corner, and Jessie's face drained of the blood it had left. Fitz and Gemma were literally running for their lives. Gemma's hair was wild, clutching a night-night gun. Fitz was bleeding from a shot in the arm. They were relying on boxes to hide behind and able to survive. Upon the roof, May was kicking butt, like usual. Coulson was shooting from behind cover. We were in the basement. I was running, and so was Grant. She found a stairwell and darted down it, hearing the faint sound of gunshots as well. The doctor followed behind her. They had electronic doors. They were closing rapidly. Both of us couldn't have gone under. Skye, she heard Grant's voice call behind a wall. She grabbed the doctor's wrist and went through the wall. And then she was there. They ducked behind a few empty bins. Skye was running as fast as she could, boots thumping on the ground. Grant was right behind her, firing at the clairvoyant's men that were chasing them. The metal door at the end of the hallway was lowering. There was a small gap left. Skye, go! Grant shouted, swinging in front of her. Skye dived to the ground, crawling as quickly as she could. Jessie saw one of them line up a shot at her. Grant did too. As Skye turned, pushed herself fully under, Grant dropped down, pushing her over, leaving himself completely open for the bullet that had been aimed at Skye. I never saw it, but I heard the shot. He took it. Jessie clapped a hand over her mouth so she wouldn't scream. Skye's was already horrible enough as the door slammed closed. The Glenvarant's men didn't even bother checking to see if Grant was dead or not. They just turned and left. Let me back in, Skye was shouting, banging on the door. Let me in! He took the shot, and that was it. I couldn't tell what happened next. The door wouldn't let me back in, like it had just been locked from the other side. Lock it, Jessie whispered. The doctor jumped up and went over to the controls, taking his sonic. There was a whir, and the light turned red. Done. Jessie walked over to Grant, leaning down to check his pulse. Grant, she whispered, I know you're there. His eyes slowly opened, the light in them fading. They found her, and widened a little in amazement. Jessie. It's me, she whispered, choking back a sob. I told you I'd always be there for you. You weren't with us at first, though. No, and I regret every second of it, Jessie admitted, holding his head as the doctor stood by, watching out for anyone coming. I should have come. Jessie, do me one thing, Grant rasped, the gun he'd been carrying slipping from his fingers. Anything, she replied instantly. Look out for Sky. Jessie sniffed, tears streaming down her cheeks. I will. He raised his hand, brushing a few away. Look at me, Jess. She did, her hair falling into her face. Find someone else to lean on, he whispered, quietly enough that no one else heard, his voice fading as she leaned down more to hear him. You will. I can't, she sobbed a little. The doctor threw a look of concern. You know how hard it is. Jess, you need it, Grant told her hoarsely. Look at you. You're cracking. Broken. Useless. Worthless. Worthless, she whispered. Grant coughed and blood splattered onto his fingertips when he held up a hand to stop it. Don't tell yourself that, he demanded. I told you I'd be there for you until I died. He gave her a faint smile. Someone will be there for you. Whether it be Fitz or Coulson or someone I don't even know. Find someone. Jessie shook her head desperately, but Grant found her face again. Promise. I promise, she finally choked out. Grant nodded slightly. Good, he whispered, slumping a little. You need it. Worthless, helpless, needy. Jessie swallowed and found the gun, placing it in Grant's free hand. He gripped it with what strength he had left. Until the end, she whispered. He smiled back. Until the end, he replied. Jessie smiled as well, then watched as the light left his eyes. Swallowing, she sniffled, then leaned over and slowly closed his eyes. Goodbye, she whispered, kissing his forehead like she had done to Coulson. The doctor laid a hand on her shoulder as she laid him down. We need to go. I know. He held out his hand and Jessie put hers in it, and they walked back through the walls and back to the TARDIS. Someone was there. A new memory was inside her head, hearing Sky's voice. I could tell. He had lost his gun, and it was in his hands. There was blood there, but his hands fell on himself. She raised a hand up to her cheek, where Grant's hand had rested. Her hand came away red. But he died with a smile. Whatever happened, it was good. Someone was there. He didn't die alone. It wasn't me, but someone was there. That's good enough for me. Even as she stepped inside, she could hear the team's cries of disbelief as they found their fallen team member. And as the doctor closed the door softly, she finally cracked. Chapter 14. The Time for Truth. So, the doctor began awkwardly, walking over to the console. Where to next? Currently in the rift, but we're ready. He faltered when we realized he was the only one in the room. Jessie? He asked, doing a full 360. Her room, the TARDIS replied, worry lacing in her tone. She can't handle this anymore. She will crack eventually. You must be there for her before she falls entirely. The face of Beau's warning rang in his head. She's moving, the TARDIS told him. Where's she going? The doctor asked, already heading off the hallways. She asked about a pool. She's hurting badly. How can I help? Do what the agent asked. Be there for her. Worthless, useless, bitch, slut. Jessie, thankfully, had found a swimsuit, one piece, thank God, and in one of the drawers. When she made it to the pool, sighing happily when she smelled the chlorine, dying to get in. The words were literally burning her, and she had to cool off somehow. Whore, liar, mutant, thing. She whimpered a little when she kept hearing them, shakingly walking over to where a mirror had popped up. She found a hairbrush and ran it through her hair, hitting knot after knot. Pain came with each stroke, and she closed her eyes against it. Dirty, unloved, unliked, abandoned. Stop it, she whispered, feeling tears fill her eyes. You know it. Ward knew it. Celine knows it. Stop. They all know it. Why do they keep you around? Stop it, she finally screamed out, bringing her hands down on the ledge of the mirror. The hairbrush fell a bend into the floor, and she held a hand over her mouth, trying to stifle her sobs. I don't know. She shook her head, hearing more of the words fly past her, taunting her. She squeezed her eyes shut, almost seeing them. She kept whimpering, her past catching up to her. That was when she realized someone had come up by her. She froze where she stood as the doctor reached down to pick up the hairbrush. Don't know what? He asked. Jessie shook her head. I can't. You know as well as I know that won't let it go. He interrupted, running the brush through her hair gently, helping to get the tangles out. And don't bother going to ask for a towel. As one hand guided the hairbrush, the other one drifted from her locks down one of her arms, tracing the lines of scars and bruises. Celine told me back after Downing Street. She told you? Everything? Not everything, he replied. But she told me enough. I was worried. You kept changing as we went along. After Platform 1, what Jabe said, the way you reacted to Gwyneth asking you those questions, and the way Pretty Boy threw those words in your face. Jessie couldn't help but smile a little. Pretty Boy? What, didn't cross your mind? Never really thought about it, she shrugged slightly as he stopped brushing her hair out, surprised that he had gotten all the tangles out. Haven't for years. Since you were 13? Jessie closed her eyes against the memories. Yes, she whispered. He put the brush down, gently took her shoulders, and turned her to face him. Jessie, he told her lowly, you can tell me, you know. I'm scared to, Jessie admitted, folding her arms. You don't have to be, the doctor told her. He looked around, then handed her the towel she'd laid across one of the chairs and handed it to her. Feeling a little better, she wrapped it around her shoulders and sank down into the chair. The doctor sitting across from her. You won't think of me differently, will you? She asked. You won't ask me to leave? The doctor shook his head, unless you want to go. She took a deep breath. Okay, what do you want to know about me? He blinked, then thought. You're half human, half Asgardian, he began. You're an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. in an adventure. You hate dresses, and I'm getting that you're a fairly good swimmer, judging by what the TARDIS has done. She nodded. Broke quite a few records in my time as a swimmer, she sighed. But that wasn't all. Do you know much about my school years? Ericsburg, right? Yeah, she confirmed, bracing herself for the story. There was a guy there, Rick Johnson, and after 7th grade, he made my life a living hell. He was a good listener, Jessie noticed as she recounted everything in her past, including the parts that were the hardest to tell, including when someone slipped booze into her punch after a 7th grade football game. He kept his face expressionless, but she could feel the tension rising underneath. The oncoming storm, he'd be called, she remembered. If Rick was still alive, he wasn't. Celine and Bruce had taken care of that. She might have seriously considered warning the police about the doctor. Once she was done, he folded his arms. And you thought I wouldn't keep you with me? She blinked in surprise. You still want me here? What happened wasn't your fault, he replied. I wouldn't force you off unless I knew something was wrong and you could be killed because of it. Now, he nodded to the pool. Out of curiosity, what's your best record? Jessie grinned, standing and putting her towel down. You've got a time machine, she teased. How do you know I won't mess the time up? Oi! She laughed and did a backflip into the water, feeling just a little glad she had finally broken open. What she was extremely glad for, she thought as she swam the entire length of the pool, was that someone was there when she did, especially laughing when she saw the impressed look on his face as she resurfaced at the other end, that it was the doctor. Okay, that was actually a really short chapter, so I'm going to do one more chapter. So that makes this chapter 15, The Empty Child. Jessie ran into the control room a few hours later, after she'd had a shower and changed into the first thing she could throw on. A Union Jack t-shirt and dark jeans with her combat boots. Oh, this is the episode where Rose would meet Jack Harness, the time agent guy. Okay. This is the Are You My Mommy episode. My brother's ringtone for my mom. Right, a Union Jacket t-shirt and dark jeans with her combat boots. What the hell is going on? She shouted. It's Mauve, the doctor replied, turning around the console wildly. Mauve, she repeated. The universally recognized color for danger. What happened to Red? She asked, moving to help him. That's just humans, he replied as he kept moving. By everyone else's standards, Red's camp. Oh, the misunderstandings, all those red alerts, all that dancing. It's got a very basic flight computer. I've hacked in, slaved the TARDIS. Where this thing goes, we go. And that safe, is it? Totally. Part of the console exploded and sparks showered everywhere. Jessie leapt away with a soft yelp before glaring at the doctor. Totally? Okay, reasonably, he corrected. Should have said reasonably there. He looked at the monitor and his eyes widened. No. She looked up as he began going around the console in his odd dance once again. It's jumping time tracks, getting away from us. What exactly is this thing? No idea. Then why the hell are we chasing it? Jessie yelped. It's mob, and it's dangerous, the doctor replied, looking at the water. And about 30 seconds from the center of London. What? Do you know how long you can knock around space without happening to bump into Earth? The doctor asked as they got out of the TARDIS. 5 days, Jessie guessed, then grinned at him mischievously. Or is that just when we're out of milk? He shook his head. Of all the species in the universe, and it has to come out of a cow. What did they ever do to you? Jessie joked. Down, girl, he warned, smiling as she giggled. Must have come down somewhere quite close, within a mile anyway, and it can't have been more than a few weeks ago, maybe a month. Jessie looked at him incredulously. A month? She gasped. We were right behind it. It was jumping time tracks all over the place, he replied. We're bound to be a little bit out. Do you want to drive? Yeah, she replied, smirking at him. How much is a little? A bit, he replied. Is that exactly a bit? He paused. Ish. Jessie chuckled. What's the plan, then? You gonna do a scan for alien tech or something? He looked at her. Jess, it hit the middle of London with a very loud bang. I'm going to ask. She snorted when she looked at the psychic paper she was offered. Dr. John Smith, Ministry of Asteroids. You're kidding me. Psychic paper, it tells you whatever you wanted to tell me, Jessie finished, throwing him a smirk. Yeah, I remember. The doctor raised an eyebrow when they made it to the door with deliveries only on it. Sorry, he said. Not very Spock, she commented. Is it? Just asking. Door, music, people, he replied. What do you think? I still think you should do a scan for alien tech, Jessie replied, and the doctor scuffed, working at the door handle with his sonic screwdriver. Give me some Spock for once. Would it kill you? The door opened, and the doctor eyed her shirt warily. Are you sure about that t-shirt? Jessie looked down at the Union Jack, then grinned and shrugged. Too early to say. I'll take it out for a spin. Mummy! Mummy! She frowned, looking up when she heard the voice. Come on if you're coming, the doctor told her, going inside. It won't take a minute. Mommy! She gasped when she saw a little boy in a gas mask on a nearby roof. Doctor, she called. Doctor, there's a kid up there. She began walking closer. Are you all right up there? She shouted up. Mommy? She ran up a fire escape staircase and made it to the flat roof just below the child. Mommy! Okay, hang on, don't move. The doctor pushed through what seemed to be a hidden nightclub, looking around. He saw the woman singing into the microphone and raised his eyebrow, going over and taking it from her. Excuse me. He looked around at the audience. Can I have everyone's attention for just a moment? Be very quick. He waved as they all looked at him. Hello. Might seem like a stupid question, but has anything fallen from the sky recently? He frowned as everyone began laughing. Sorry, have I said something funny? It's just, there's this thing that I need to find. Would have fallen from the sky a couple of days ago. He looked up as the siren began going off, and people began leaving. Would have landed quite near, he continued, with a very loud, Quickly as you can, someone shouted. Down to the shelter. Bang, the doctor finished when he saw the poster on the wall. Hitler will send no warning. Hope you don't mind being caught in World War II, Jess. Jessie was looking around desperately, then found a dangling rope hanging close by. She grabbed it and began using it to help climb up to the child. Mummy, balloon! He called to her. What? She yelped. She looked up, realizing she was dangling from a barrage balloon a few seconds too late. It began drifting away from the wall, and she screeched, realizing she was hanging over London with absolutely nothing to break her fall besides crashing into the alleyway. Doctor! She began screaming. Doctor! Doctor! She blinked as searchlights began raking through the sky. She heard explosions going off and saw fires begin. Oh, hell no, she gasped, realizing they were even as German planes began heading for them. Maybe not this t-shirt. She looked down. World War II, she shouted. Not funny. Jessie, the doctor called, running out of the nightclub. A cat meowed nearby, and he sighed, looking at it. You know, he began, one day, just one day, maybe, I'm going to meet someone who gets the whole don't wander off thing. 900 years of phone box travel, it's only thing left to surprise me. He jumped when a telephone began ringing. He walked over to the TARDIS and opened a small door, frowning at the telephone there. How can you be ringing? He asked. What's that about, ringing? What am I supposed to do with a ringing phone? He pulled out his sonic screwdriver to fix it. Don't answer it. He jerked, standing upright and turning quickly. A young, dark-haired woman stood there, behind him, eyeing the phone warily. It's not for you. Fuck!
Pistachios.
Oh!
Pistachios. El pistachio.
He got me. He got me. A young dark-haired woman stood there behind him, eyeing the phone warily. It's not for you. And how'd you know that? He asked. 'Cause I do, she replied, and I'm telling you, don't answer it. Well, if you know so much, tell me this, the doctor told her, folding his arms. How can it be ringing? It's not even a real phone. It's not connected. It's not... He'd faltered, seeing that she'd gone. He shrugged, then answered the phone. Hello? He asked. Hello? This is the doctor speaking. How may I help you? Mummy? Mummy? He frowned. Who is this? Who's speaking? Are you my mummy? Who is this? He repeated. Mummy! How did you ring here? He demanded. This isn't a real phone. It's not wired up to anything. Mummy! He jerked back when he got the dial tone. He knocked on the TARDIS door, then blatantly remembered he hadn't given Jessie her key back. Well, then you're not in there. He heard a noise at the end of the alley, then ran off to follow. He saw the girl heading for a house, and he followed her. He climbed onto a dustbin, then looked over a wall into the back garden to see a middle-aged woman shepherd a young boy into the air raid shelter. Her husband joined them, and the doctor watched them get into the shelter. He was next distracted when the young woman he'd seen earlier entered and went into the house. Jessie winced as the rope continued to burn her hands. Her grip slipped a little too much, and she screamed, finally letting go and falling. And she was caught in what seemed to be a beam. Okay, an American male voice said, and she looked up and around. I've got you. Who's got me? She demanded. Who's got me, and well, how? I'm just programming your descent pattern, the man replied. Keep as still as you can, and keep your hands and feet inside of the light field. Descent pattern? She echoed in disbelief. Oh, and could you switch off your cell phone? Jessie snorted. No, seriously, it interferes with my instruments. No one ever believes that, she grumbled, bringing out her galaxy, and doing that anyways. Thank you, that's much better. Oh yeah, that's a real load-off, she commented sarcastically. I'm hanging in the sky in the middle of a German air raid with the Union Jack on my chest. But hey, you know what? My phone's off. Ain't that great? Be with you in a moment. There's a pause. Hold tight. To what? Jessie screeched. Fair point. She felt herself being hurtled down something, then crashed into someone's arms. I've got you, the voice said, and she looked up, startled, when she met a pair of blue eyes. You're fine. You're just fine. The tractor beam. It can scramble your head just a little. Hello, she said wearily. Hello, he repeated. Hello, she repeated right back, then groaned, rolling her eyes. Sorry, that was Trice. Are you all right? He asked worriedly. Fine, she replied as he put her down. Why, are you expecting me to faint or something? You look a little dizzy, he commented. What about you? She asked hazily. You're not even in focus. She broke off, falling in a dead faint. The doctor walked into the house, smiling a little, when several little kids ran in. He poked his head into the dining room to hear kids talking. It's got to be a black market, one of the boys was saying. You couldn't get all this on coupons. Ernie, how many times? The young woman asked with a smile. We are guests in this house. We will not make comments of that kind. Washing up. They all laughed, and the kids exclaimed, Oh, Nancy. So her name was Nancy. The doctor stood in the back of the room, making sure no one saw him. There was more discussion. Then Nancy held up a plate of meat. All right, then, one slice each, and I want to see everyone chewing properly. The doctor sat down at the end of the table as was handed around. Thank you, miss, one of the boys said. Thank you, miss, another said. Thank you, miss, a third said. The doctor finally got it and said brightly, Thanks, miss. The kids all began panicking, and Nancy glared at him. It's all right, she told everyone. Everyone stay where you are. Good here, isn't it? The doctor asked, smiling at his plate. Who's got the salt? Back in your seats, Nancy ordered. He shouldn't be here either. The doctor nodded as everyone took their seats. So you lot, what's your story? He asked. What do you mean? The first boy asked. You're homeless, right? Living rough? The doctor guessed. Why do you want to know that? Another boy asked suspiciously. Are you a copper? The doctor started. Of course I'm not a copper. What's a copper gonna do with you lot anyway? Arrest you for starving? He leaned back in his chair. I make it 1941. You lot shouldn't even be in London. You should have been evacuated to the country by now. I was evacuated, another boy told him. Sent me to a farm. So why'd you come back? The doctor asked. There was a man there. Yeah, same with Ernie, the boy who accused him of being a copper told him. 2 homes ago. Shut up, Ernie, Shut up, Ernie, the first boy told him. It's better on the streets anyway. It's better food. Yeah, Copper Boy agreed. Nancy always gets the best food for us. The doctor looked at Nancy. So that's what you do, is it, Nancy? What is? She asked. As soon as the sirens go, you find a big fat family still warm on the table with a big fat family meal still warm on the table with everyone down in their air raid shelter, and bingo, he snapped his fingers. Feeding frenzy for the homeless kids of London town. Pudding for all, as long as bombs don't get you. Something wrong with that? Nancy asked. Wrong with it? The doctor echoed with a laugh. It's brilliant. I'm not sure if it's Marxism in action or a West End musical. Why'd you follow me? She asked. What do you want? I want to know how a phone that isn't a phone gets a phone call, the doctor replied. You seem to be the one to ask. I did you a favor, Nancy replied. I told you not to answer it. That's all I'm telling you. Great, thanks, he said sarcastically. And I want to find a brunette in a Union Jack. I mean a specific one. I didn't just wake up this morning with a craving. He looked at the other kids. Anybody seen a girl like that? He started when Nancy took his plate away. What have I done wrong? You took two slices, Nancy replied, like it was obvious. No brunettes, no flags. Anything else before you leave? The doctor nodded. Yeah, there is, actually. Thanks for asking. Something I've been looking for. Would have fallen from the sky about a month ago, but not a bomb. Not the usual kind, anyway. Wouldn't have exploded. Probably just buried itself in the ground somewhere, and it would have looked something like this. He pulled out a rough sketch from his pocket and showed it to the others. There was a knock on the door, making everyone jump. Mummy? A child's voice asked, and the doctor remembered from the phone call. Are you in there, Mummy? He looked out the window to see a little boy in a gas mask standing there. Mummy? Who was the last one in? Nancy demanded. Him, Ernie replied, pointing to the doctor. No, he came round back, Nancy denied. Who came in the front? Me, the boy from the farm replied. Did you close the door? Nancy asked. Did you close the door? Mummy! 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 Nancy ran out of the room, and the doctor heard the bolting of the front door. He followed her out to see her doing just that. What's this, then? He asked. It's never easy being the only child left out in the cold, you know. I suppose you'd know, Nancy muttered. I do, actually, yes. It's not exactly a child. Mummy! Nancy ran back into the dining room. Right, everybody out, she ordered. Across the back garden and under the fence. Now, go, move! The doctor watched the children leave, then looked back to the door. Mummy! Mummy! The child asked. Please let me in, Mummy. Please let me in, Mommy. The doctor slowly approached as a hand came through the letterbox. Are you all right? Please let me in. Something smashed into the door, and the hand quickly withdrew. You mustn't let him touch you, Nancy shrieked. What happens if he touches me? The doctor demanded. He'll make you like him. And what's he like? Nancy hesitated. I've got to go. Nancy, what's he like? He's empty. When the telephone rang, her eyes widened. It's him. He can make phone rings. He can. Just like with that police box you saw. The doctor picked up the phone curiously. Are you my mummy? The voice came through. Nancy took it from him and slammed it back down on the hook. Various other things started up, asking for Mummy as well. You stay if you want, Nancy told him, going for the back door. The doctor watched as the boy put his hand back through the letterbox. This time, the doctor noted the scar on the back of his hand. Mummy, it asked. Let me in, please. Mummy, please let me in. Your mummy isn't here, the doctor told him gently. Are you my mummy? The doctor would have snorted. He was pretty sure he wasn't a mummy. Jessie would be, he thought, and he swallowed at the thought that something had happened to her. No mummy's here, he told the child. Nobody here but us chickens. Well, this chicken. I'm scared. Why are those other children frightened of you? He asked. Please let me in, Mummy, the child pleaded. I'm scared of the bombs. That did it for the doctor. Okay, I'm opening the door now. The child withdrew his hand, and the doctor slowly unbolted the door. He opened it, then blinked in astonishment. The boy was gone. Jessie groaned, rolling her head around when she woke up. Better now? The man asked from a little ways away. She sat up warily. Have you got lights in here? Lights flickered on a moment later. She nodded her appreciation, then raised an eyebrow at the man, who had his arm folded and was looking at her. Hello. Hello, she repeated. Hello. We are not starting that again, she told him. Okay, he replied easily. So, who are you supposed to be, then? Jessie asked. Captain Jack Harness, he replied, handing her an ID card. 133 Squadron, Royal Air Force, American Volunteer. She burst out laughing when he saw his ID. Liar, she accused, handing it back. I know it's psychic paper. It tells me whatever you want it to tell me. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the chapter there because my computer's being weird and is going to restart soon without my permission. So yeah, I'm gonna stop that there, and I will continue this chapter the next video. Alright.